I'm really excited and really thankful to Product School to offer me this opportunity to share my learnings with you. I'm by no means a guru in mindfulness, nor am I one of the best product managers in the industry. However, I have learned some practical techniques to apply mindfulness into product management in sort of agile ways, which I'm really kind of excited to share. And the reason I have this cup is because I feel like unless it's some packaged in small portions, it's hard to consume some of the things. So that's what I'm about to share is some of the simple techniques that we can apply into product management. I think this topic will be relevant to you because it's not very specific to product management. It's how you deliver your job, regardless of whether what title it is. So before I go, I wanted to give a quick intro about myself. In my personal life, I'm a family man, as you can see. I have 2 wonderful boys, and that makes my life really busy. So it's really important for me that I make my job really efficient. So that helps me stay focused on my job and at the same time spend time with my family. I am a lifelong student of 3 M's, as I call it, music. So I'm a trained classical vocalist. I love math. I love the problem solving aspect of math, which is what brought me to computer science, software engineering, and eventually to product management. And third is mindfulness, which is what I'm about to share with you today. So I work as a senior product manager at Expedia, and I own their digital marketing ad platform for SEO and social and email type of channels. And before working for Expedia, I worked for a startup called Limeade. So when in 2012, I came to Seattle, I had a decade-long career as a software engineer. And among many choices, including Microsoft, I chose to work for Limeade because they had a great mission of measurably improving the well-being in the world. I really liked that mission. And I figured if I could work for this company, that might help me improve my own well-being. And I'll be able to write software that actually improves other people's lives. So I felt that that was a really great company to join. And as the company evolved from 30 employee startup to a 250 plus employee small company, small and growing company with millions of dollars in revenue and millions of users, I had the opportunity to grow with the company. So I evolved from a tech lead to a technical product manager to a director of product. And the products I launched had almost all aspects of product. So the product had users, customers, buyers, analysts, vendors, partners, you name it, and it had all kind of components of that. And the role was super cross-functional. So aside from working with engineering and designers, I had the opportunity to work with sales, marketing, and then biz dev, and then operations, legal, finance. So as exciting as it sounds, the role was super overwhelming, and it was intimidating at times and overwhelming, and I had self-doubt. And I asked myself a question: if there was one skill that I could really invest in, and if I could build incrementally, what would that be? So what I realized is if I can be centered during any conversation, any interaction, because as a product manager, I realized that that was the overwhelming part, to be part of conversations when there were so many passionate ideas and conflicting views. If I could stay centered during those, and I could bring clarity, then that would be golden for me as a product manager, and I would be able to reach my full potential. And then that boiled down to if I could really watch my breath, because if I can watch my breath, then that's what is going to help me stay centered. And that's where I realized that building that skill was the most important thing I wanted to build over time. And 5 years since then, I still thank for that decision, because as I launched these products, some of the very key products for this company, which helped drive millions of users, millions of dollars in revenue, from ground up, from scratch, because it was a startup. So everything had to be done, like you had to be everything, and you had to build teams from scratch. What I really realized that I was not only having fun, but I was also improving my own health and well-being. And I was building some really deep, long-lasting connections with the coworkers I was working with. And I then realized that whatever practice I'm doing is real. It's something that's worth sharing with others. And I think product school might have read my mind or something. So they approached me and I said, how about I speak about this unconventional topic? And then they were very open to it. So that's how it began. And that's about me, right? But if you think of us as a product managers or aspiring product managers, right? Product management is a leadership role with no formal authority. Product managers lead by inspiring people, by building trust, by building shared alignment among teams. And the success depends a lot on strong intuition and real-time decision making and a strong judgment. So when I was a software engineer, if I had to solve a problem, I would go back to my computer, I might even spend nights and solve something. But as a product manager, sometimes you just have to make a decision when you have so many stakeholders in the room. And these skills, I believe, can't be taught in school. You have it and then you improve it, right? And thankfully, there are a lot of resources and tools to help you organize your thoughts. There are lots of communities, some of them really great, like Product School, which help you learn from each other. But in my experience, when it comes to actually applying these principles, what really matters is how present you are in that given moment and how centered you can be during a passionate conversation and how grounded you can be when you are under pressure, right? So that, plus the world of product manager is often clouded like this, right? With diverse information and confusing opinions and conflicting priorities, right? So clarity is really the key for our role. After all, we're hired to bring clarity to the organization. And bringing this clarity, again, is not an overnight skill you can build. So how do we really build this clarity? So as I mentioned, when I had that realization, if there is one skill I could build, what I realized that what I truly own is a day. How I lead my day is how I'm going to kind of build that skill over the period of time. And each day is made of thousands of moments. If I can tap into, if I can be mindful into even a fraction of some of these moments, I realize that I can significantly improve the way I see the world with clarity and move the needle one day at a time. So that was my hypothesis. And that's what I started to practice in my product management role. And I started seeing effects, but who cares what I say, right? I wanted to see what experts have to say about this. And then I did some research and I found that Harvard Business Review had an experiment. They had a program, mindfulness program for leaders. And at the end of this program, they were curious to see what are the outcomes of this exercise. They found significant positive improvements in 3 basic mental capacities. One of them was metacognition, which is the ability to see your own thinking, to observe your thoughts. The second one was the ability to allow things, meaning accept things as they are, see objectively, see with clarity. The third thing is curiosity. As you know, if you want to be a product manager, you want to be curious. You want to be curious about your customers, about the market, about the user trends. So all of these things, all of these skills show significant improvement after that program. But what struck me the most was what the author had to say at the end. What she said or he said was, at the end of the day, what really matters is developing your own personal practice is what is going to make the real impact, right? So I felt like, okay, there is a validation by experts as well. And I felt even more compelled to share what I had to share. So incrementally, I built a simple framework to apply every day that does not require significant investment of your day, but still can make a big impact on your performance. So the way I see it, as product managers, we have 4 opportunities to be mindful. So the one is your morning. This is the time after you wake up to the time you start working. The second opportunity are the numerous interactions you have throughout the day, which includes meetings, right? As product managers, there are a lot of meetings. The third and most important opportunity is the flow time. As product managers, we don't get paid for attending meetings. We get paid for bringing ideas and bringing clarity and bringing vision and strategy. That's where you build this, right? And this flow time is super critical to your success. And the fourth and most important, yet often missed, is how you unwind your day. So let's go through each of these and see, let me share how I tap into this opportunity and see if there's value for you. So research shows that the morning, the 30 to 60 minutes after you wake up is the most critical for your productivity, because that's when your brain is freshest, it has the most clarity. It's more receptive for creativity, right? And we can declutter that brain by checking emails, reading news, or going through social media. I used to do that. I still sometimes get tempted to check emails because there's so much excitement going on. But I made a regimen many years ago that the first thing I'm going to do is meditate. And as a family, we used to meditate when I was a kid, and it was an hour-long process, and I somehow dropped that because it wouldn't fit in my schedule. So what I said is, well, agile, right? Let me be agile about it. And when I wake up, I just have a glass of water, sit in the corner of my living room, set my timer on the phone for 10 minutes, turn off, make it airplane mode, and then I just sit. I just sit and close my eyes, watch my breath, and count up to 10. So when I breathe in 1, breathe out 2. This simple exercise is tremendously powerful. What is really happening is the brain is going from a driver's seat to a watcher's seat when you're literally closing your eyes and watching your breathe. You're not doing anything. You're telling to just watch. It's that metacognition ability that the Harvard Business Review mentioned. And when this happens, there's a tremendous recharging effect on the brain. I find this exercise to be so recharging that I crave for it. Sometimes if I cannot do it, I crave as if I crave for coffee. So this small exercise has a big impact on how you boot your day. The second similarly simple but important activity is writing intentions. This is not a to-do list. This is not a strategy deck. What I really do is I quickly, on a piece of paper and pen, I just write down what I really want to accomplish for the day. And what's happening is I'm priming my brain for what's really important. And good news is, because your brain is so receptive, because you didn't let your brain be decluttered through emails and news, it is going to surface the really important stuff. You don't have to think about it. Just start with a paper and pen. The right things will show up, I promise. But the key is to keep it simple. What I've noticed is when I write these things down, I have essentially primed my brain. There's a cognitive bias for my brain. And at the end of the day, I almost always forget that piece of paper because I wrote it on a couch. When I come home, all those things are accomplished just because my brain was already tuned towards those simple intentions that I set in the morning. And a third optional activity I do is I journal my fears, uncertainties, and doubts. As I mentioned, as a product manager, intuition, clarity are so important. So if you can declutter it by offloading all those rational or irrational fears on a piece of paper, the brain feels enormous clarity. I find that when I write it down, I either find a solution for it, or I find how irrational they are, or I just offload it and my brain could pick it up later. And to keep it real, I wanted to give an example. So today, I just wrote my intentions for the day. I said, okay, what would make today great? And I had an important one-on-one with my manager. His name is not Dan, but I wanted to kind of make it anonymous for this presentation. And then, but this intention is as real. So aside from the name, but what I could do for that one-on-one to be meaningful is I set aside some time before lunchtime or before the one-on-one. The second thing is I wanted to finish my MVP, which is a minimum viable product, term in product management. I wanted to have a draft ready. It will take weeks for me to have a final version, but I wanted to start on it. And the simplest thing I could do is start with a top use case and then some acceptance criteria. And I set aside 30 minutes for it. And then I wanted to set up a really big meeting with a lot of people outside the company, so I wanted to make sure I do it before I lose availability. And then I wanted to take a doctor's appointment. It's important, it's not work, but if I don't take that appointment, my brain is going to warn me for something that I haven't done, and it's going to come in my way to be creative and productive. Then I had some worries. To give an example, I'm worried that the third party that I'm using for my product, they may not deliver the API in time, and it's kind of bugging me. So I wrote down all my worries, and I felt really clear after that. So this small exercise doesn't take more than 15 minutes. And I promise whatever technique I was going to share is not going to impact your daily schedule. So 15 minutes is not a lot in the big scheme of things, but a huge impact there. The second important opportunity for being mindful are your meetings. So if you are a product manager, or whenever you do become a product manager, there will be a lot of meetings. They can be overwhelming. And what I noticed is meetings can be super overwhelming. At the same time, there are such great opportunities to be mindful. When I would be in meetings, I would find myself unnecessarily fidgety or anxious, even when I was not presenting. It's just because brain is just used to being in the driver's seat, and when it's just sitting, it feels like something is wrong. So what I found is just bringing myself in the room, centered, watching my breathe, similar to the exercise I did in the morning. It really helps me center and listen to people. There was a time when I was in a meeting, and there were a lot of cross-functional teammates, people from other companies whom we were partnering with, and there were a lot of discussion around a big problem. And I was optional attendee in that meeting, but I decided to just be in that meeting and just listen instead of checking my emails while I was in that meeting. And 20-30 minutes into the conversation, something came to me. I just started sharing my laptop with the product, and I identified an opportunity that we could try right now instead of having a 6-month-long cycle to release the product. And then I went to the whiteboard and drew like what we could do now versus what we could do in the next 3 months. And this simple step or this simple exercise brought so much clarity in the room, so much that anecdotally the partner insisted that I attend all of their meetings moving forward. The point here is I was not supposed to be a part of that meeting, but if everyone were trying to be a little bit mindful, anyone could have had that idea. And then if you can be mindful in every meeting, imagine the amount of productivity you can deliver in that specific meeting, right? So that's meetings. The second one is the conversations you have, right? What I've noticed is when you have conversations with engineers, with business stakeholders, it's really important that you listen to them objectively. And when you have certain resentments inside, or if you have doubts about that person, or if you have some grudges, it's going to show up in that outward conversation, no matter how professional, no matter how polished you are in how you speak. So what I've noticed is when I'm speaking with engineers and designers, just being mindful of my internal dialogue is so critical. And you don't have to fake it. There's always something good about that person, and just being mindful about what's good about that person makes a huge impact on what kind of outcome you can have from that dialogue. Because you will soon notice when you become a product manager is engineers and designers are the one who are going to actually build the product. So it's really important to have that rapport with them. And then if you can improve, you can be mindful about your inner dialogue. It's going to make a big impact there. The third one is the positive intent. No matter what a great company you work for, no matter what a great team you have and what rapport you have with your teammates, there will be times when there are these awkward instances. There are these times when you feel offended by something. And that can churn in you depending on how emotional you are. Even if you are not, it's going to create some tag in your head which will create some barrier when you speak with that person later. But more importantly, you're bringing down your own productivity because you have that grudge in you. More often than not, I have seen whenever I feel offended, it's because I assume something wrong. There's always, no one is after me, no one is trying to hurt me. It's more like people have their own goals and agendas, and they're looking the world from their own lens. So when I have this positive intent, when I assume positive intent, it puts me at ease. It's not about that person, it puts me at ease, and I'm able to deliver my job much, much better. There was an instance where when I was new to product management, I used to get pushback from engineers on certain ideas, and I was like, they must not like me, or I think that engineer is a little bit pessimistic. I would always assume the worst thing. But as I look deeper, what I really realized is the engineers in the past had been burned by building something and then later becoming a maintenance nightmare for them. So just when I understood their point of view, I was able to reframe it and then present it such that, look, this is a feature I want to test. And before I launch it broadly, I'm going to make sure that I have your sign off. And when I framed it that way, I had their trust, and then I had more support from them to actually deliver these features. So the positive intent can go a long way for you to be a great teammate, for you to be successful as a product manager. And this whole exercise doesn't take extra time because this is a meta activity. You were going to have those conversations anyway. So no extra time, just a meta activity. The third and most important time for you, or third most important opportunity for you as a product manager, is the flow time, right? This is where the magic happens. This is where you write that vision statement for your product. This is where you build the roadmap. And what happens often is people do block some time on their calendar, so they do schedule. But at least what I used to do, I used to think that this is like a magical thing that needs to happen, so I need to block the whole day or half a day. And then nothing would get done because A, I would never commit to that long of a block time, or others would override thinking that it's not going to take the whole day. So what I found is scheduling just the right amount of time, maybe an hour or two on my calendar, and then moving to a room with whiteboard and minimal electronics helps me really kind of focus and get into that zone. The second thing, the second hurdle that I used to earn, I've heard other people have, is we think that an inspiring idea or a bright idea has to come upon us, and only then I can actually start strategizing. That doesn't happen. The way you do it is you just start scribbling. You just start doing something. So instead of waiting for that bright moment to happen, what I found helpful is whatever is on my mind, maybe there is a goal I want to achieve. Even though I don't have a solution, even though I don't have a framework, just starting to write down creates that momentum. And the law of physics, as you all know, is whatever gets started keeps that motion, right? So just the act of simple scribbling or writing or starting a PowerPoint deck gets you in that motion, and then letting it go. So if you started your day with that meditation, if you had positive conversations with your colleagues, your brain is already ripe for the right things. And you offered the space, you offered the time, and you offered the motion. Now things will just happen. And I'm going to give a real example. Just this week, I wanted to build a strategy for increasing revenue for a marketing product I'm building. I started scribbling something like this. It's not real in that I had to simplify it, make it generic so it doesn't have IP. But point is, it looks very similar to this. And then just within a few minutes, I had a lot of clarity, and I ended up spending 1 hour. And then I had end up building a visual like this, a framework like this, which helped me identify the next big opportunities we could focus on. And then I had a framework to find the sweet spot of where we could focus on our product strategy. So point is, if you allow your brain this space, time, it will deliver what you want it to deliver. This whole exercise doesn't take extra time either, because you were gonna, as a product manager, you are accountable for delivering the roadmap or delivering the user stories or delivering the specifications to your engineer. But if you follow this structure without spending extra time, you can deliver this in a really short duration. I was able to do that in maybe less than 2 hours, this whole thing, just because I allowed myself the space. I'm not always successful, but the times when I do this, it does work. The fourth opportunity I see relatively easy, but so hard to actually do, is to really unwind well. If you're a product manager, you might have had hundreds of conversations throughout the day at varying degrees of complexity, and it's so likely that your brain will pick up what didn't go well, the feature that didn't launch or the demo that didn't go well, and that increases cortisol levels and increases stress. But what if you could just recall 3 wins for that day? And it's so easy because you say just 3 wins. There's always something that went well that day, a feature that went well, or a demo that did go well, or a bug that you caught before the customer noticed it. So there is always something good. And when you kind of recall this, you feel at ease. But more importantly, you are relaxing yourself for a better night's sleep, right? That's the most important thing. And then the second thing is the bedtime gratitude, right? research shows that being grateful helps release dopamine, reduce cortisol levels, and it's so simple. There's always something to be grateful about. And as product managers, as knowledge workers, we get paid for ideas, for bringing ideas to the table and not maybe working something physical. So when we are getting paid for knowledge and for ideas, our success depends on sustained creativity. And unless we really have a good reset, unless we have a good kind of an unplugged time, we're not going to wake up fresh and kind of continue to deliver that creativity the next day. So I think this particular activity takes no more than 1 minute, can have a big impact on your sleep and then how you wake up the next day. So who are we? So we are product managers. We get paid for bringing ideas, intuitions, strategy to the organization. And our success depends on return on investment. Whatever we invest, what's the return, right? That's the metric for our success. So what I'm suggesting is the biggest investment we can do is in ourselves, and specifically in how we deliver a day. So what I'm suggesting is a total of 16 minutes of investments in your day. Just a cupful of mindfulness, just 16 minutes of mindfulness can deliver real results in your role as a product manager, which could show in terms of clarity, intuition, and performance. It could show in even more tangible outcomes like better specifications or better user stories or more aligned roadmap or faster launches of your products. So what I'm suggesting is a daily practice, which is as simple as 16 minutes, can really help you as product managers. Thank you.
Any questions for Yogesh? Are you still at Limeade? I didn't quite catch that.
Am I still at Limeade?
Yeah, you're still at Limeade?
I am at Expedia. So I was with Limeade for 6 years, and then I switched to Expedia about 3 months ago.
Okay.
Yeah.
I missed that part. I just wondered.
Yeah.
Something that I notice a lot of managers talk about when I ask them about how they manage their workload and stuff is that they really focus on multitasking because they always have so many things going on and there's so many decisions that they need to make. How do you think mindfulness plays in with multitasking? Because mindfulness is kind of just focusing on one thing and doing your best in that one thing at a time. Multitasking is trying to think ahead about the things that you need to get done.
Mm-hmm. Why do you think multitasking is the way to go?
I think because they just have such busy schedules and they're always trying to prepare for what to do next. That seems like fair.
Yeah, so multitasking is an interesting concept. If you look into the research, they say there's no such thing as multitasking. Our brain cannot do two things at a time. What the brain can do is it can switch. So when you're doing two things at the same time, it's switching. So let's say you are in a meeting and you're also checking emails. Your brain is actually switching from meeting conversation to emails. And I have noticed that whenever I do this, I come out tired. Just like CPU, if you keep on opening two windows, it's gonna kind of heat up more, right? So multitasking, if you ask research, they say is a myth, right? And it's a big no-no from productivity gurus, if you will. So, but I hear what you're saying. I think what you meant to say is product managers do a lot of juggling. That's a different thing than multitasking. So juggling is you may have 3 priorities at the same time. You may have 3 products that are in different phases of their life cycle. And then how do they manage it, right? So everyone has their own style and everyone handles it differently. But end of the day, it's not a rocket science. It's like, how do you keep 3 things in a cupboard, right? How do you manage 3 things, right? So there is only one way you can kind of slice it in time, right? You could either focus if you have 3 projects, you slice the day into 3 parts, or you can slice the week into 3 parts, right? And then the more you focus, the sooner you will be able to be done with one task, right? And then you can go to the next one, right? So that's how I think is the way. There's no other way around. You just, regardless of how many things you are juggling, you still have to focus on one ball at a time, just like the juggler. So back to your question, mindfulness still helps because your daily intentions will now say, I need to focus on my task, on my project number 1 today because it's launching today, right? And that's your intention for that day. Or you may write, I want to focus on all 3 of them, and then you say, okay, I'm going to set 30 minutes time for each of them, so I set the next steps for them.
So you said that we need to build one skill a day. What is the first skill that you think like is really necessary or like you can start from to build?
So what is the one skill, right?
Yeah.
So that's a,
First the primary skill.
yeah, that highly depends on where you are in your journey as a product manager, right? So if you are an engineer, then the one skill you may want to build based on what kind of product manager you want to be is maybe understand the business of the product you are in, right? How they make money, who pays for it, what are the customers, who are the who is the competition, like what is the market landscape, right? So that's from a product point of view. But if you want to build great communication skills, right, maybe you have a different first language, right? So maybe that's the skill that you want to build. The reason for me I picked a mindfulness is because I thought that's a meta activity, right? So I'll give you an example. Many years ago, I wanted to start reading a lot of books. And it just happens that the first book I read was How to Read Fast. You know what I'm saying? So if I can learn to read fast, then I can read a lot of books. So back to your question, what is the one activity or one skill you want to build? It depends on what you want to do or where you think the gap is, right? So based on that, you can start that first skill.